Jaya Radha Madhava Kunja Bihari 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 Gopijana Vallabha Girivaradhari Jaya Gopijana Vallabha Girivaradhari Gopijana Vallabha Girivaradhari Jaya Gopijana Vallabha Girivaradhari Yashoda Nandana Bhavijana Nandana Yashoda Nandana Bhavijana Nandana Yashoda Nandana Bhavijana Nandana Yashoda Nandana Bhavijana Nandana Yamuna Tira Vanachari Yamuna Tira Vanachari Yamuna Tira Vanachari Jaya Radha Madhava Kunja Bihari 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 Jom Shabbat Param Inspiration Shri Shri Shrimati Divine Grace A.C. Bhaktivedanta Swami Prabhupada Ki
Jai.
Shri Shri Jagdambal Subhadramai Ki
Jai.
Shri Gauritai Ki
Jai.
Nittai Gopinamanam
Hari.
Glories to Samdhavati
Hari.
All glories to Samdhavati Glories to Samdhavati
Hare.
All glories of glories to the Lord Sweet Shri Guru Ji Glories to Shri Prabhupada Om Jnanatimirandasya Jnananjana Shalakaya Chakshurunmilitam Yena Tasmai Shri Gurave Namaha Mukham Karoti Vachalam Pangum Langayate Girim Yakripatam Shri Gurun Dinatarani Jai Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Gadadhar Shivasati Gaura Bhaktivinoda Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare 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 Krishna. It's a pleasure to be back here in Zurich and here in the temple. It feels like a second home. I do visit quite regularly. Who's here for the first time? Hands. One. Okay. Who comes every Sunday? Hands? Pretty much every Sunday? Almost every Sunday? Okay, then who's occasional? Who visits occasionally? Okay, about 30% of people put their hands up, so I'm not quite sure what category everyone else is in. But just so I have some sort of an idea of where to pitch the class, because the Sunday Feast class is a little difficult because there's such a range of people who attend. But thank you all for coming. It's nice to see such a nice crowd here today. I wanted to speak about this topic, as Lucas mentioned, the hand of God. So, some of you who are into football, when I was young, I was into football. There was this goal scored by Diego Maradona. I grew up in England, and the goal was against England, so, you know, it was a very infamous goal. It was in 1986 World Cup. Very fierce competition, England versus Argentina. The ball was in the air. Diego Maradona was a short guy. But he jumped, and it seemed like he headed the ball, but he touched it with his hand and scored the goal. and the English players were going crazy. The English fans were going crazy, saying it was a handball and it's not allowed. But the goal remained, and England lost the match. Anyway, so English people are still now, 40 years later almost, they're still talking about the hand of God. Actually, on Diego Maradona's 60th birthday, on his 60th birthday, they asked him, "What would you like for your birthday?" It was he scored this goal with his left hand. On his 60th birthday, he said, "I would love, if you really want to give me a gift, I'd love to score another goal against England with my right hand." So anyway, this topic of the hand. So this goal was called the hand of God. The hand of God, because with his hand he scored the goal. So I was reflecting on this topic of the hand of God. So we're not talking about Diego Maradona's hand here, we're talking about the hand of God. And for us, the hand of Krishna. And really seeing the hand of Krishna in our lives. So it's described that as we practice Krishna consciousness, as we follow the scriptures, like the Bhagavad Gita, the Srimad Bhagavatam, and so many other scriptures which we have, the more we follow them, we come under the protection of Krishna. Krishna takes control of our lives. He helps us, he guides us. He brings certain situations into our lives in order to mold us and grow us ultimately into pure devotees. That's his idea, that's his goal. So there's a nice pastime in a story in the Srimad Bhagavatam. Who's heard of the Srimad Bhagavatam? Okay, easier. Who's not heard of the Srimad Bhagavatam? Who hasn't heard? Okay, so I'm assuming everyone's heard of the Srimad Bhagavatam. So in the first canto, there's a nice story of Narad Muni. Narad Muni speaking to his disciple Vyasadeva. It's one of my favorite pastimes in the Bhagavatam, actually. And he says, he's describing Vyasadeva is the disciple of Narad Muni. Vyasadeva asks, just like any disciple, he wants to know, how did my spiritual master become so great? How did he become so qualified? How did he become so Krishna conscious? So Vyasadeva asks Narad Muni, what is your story? Please tell me about your journey to becoming such a great devotee. So Narad Muni describes his story. He says that in his previous life, he was the son of a maidservant. So she was serving in a rich family, doing whatever was needed. She was a maidservant. Simple tasks. And Narad Muni was 5 years old, her son. And when he was 5 years old, some great souls, they labeled the Bhakti Vedantas. They were very learned, very elevated in spiritual consciousness. They visited that home. And when they visited, she had to serve them. That was one of her tasks, one of her duties, to serve these great souls. So it came time to serve them prasad. And she engaged little Narad. This is Narad in his previous life. She engaged him, okay, go and serve them. Give them food, give them prasad, give them whatever they want. So Narad Muni was serving them. And as he was serving them, he heard what they were speaking about. What do devotees speak about when they come together? The football? No. They speak about Krishna. So he was hearing what they were speaking about. He was hearing very attentively. He described that he was hearing very attentively. Actually, he says in the Bhagavatam, he says, I wasn't interested in childhood play. I wasn't interested in mundane sports. Funnily enough, now that I remember. He says specifically, I wasn't interested in mundane sports. He heard very attentively. This disinterest in material life allows one to absorb in spiritual life. Sometimes devotees say, why isn't it okay if I do a little bit of Krishna and a little bit of Maya? A balance of the two. Not too much in either direction. The point is that the more you're able to absorb in Krishna and take yourself away from the elements of the material energy, the greater the depth of your absorption. When you chant Hare Krishna, who doesn't chant Hare Krishna? I'm asking because it's easier to say who doesn't. Who doesn't chant Hare Krishna? So maybe the new person there, right? So a few of you maybe don't. But if you're chanting Hare Krishna, then the mind sometimes may wander. What does the mind wander to? It wanders to our attachments. It wanders to those elements of the material energy which distract our mind and take us away from Krishna. And therefore, a certain detachment from the material energy is very healthy for cultivating spiritual life. So Narad Muni says he wasn't interested in mundane sports. He wasn't interested in childhood play. He absorbed himself in hearing what these great souls were speaking about. He heard with rapt attention, he says. He heard, absorption. Number two, he heard from them, and then number two, he took their remnants. Meaning when they had eaten, when they had finished, he took some. And it's described in the scriptures. I remember when I first came to Krishna consciousness and this topic of taking the remnants came up. I was a little disturbed by it, to be honest with you, but I got used to it. In my home, we never took the remnants of one another, you know, sort of my parents ate their food, I ate my food, you know, it was very separate. And then suddenly, devotees are running after the remnants of great souls, and I was thinking, what is all this about? But it's purifying, it's powerful. So he took their remnants, and he served them to their satisfaction. They were very pleased with him, and therefore they gave him blessings. Anyway, kind of long story short, they left. They were there for the 4 months of the rainy season in India, between June and August, June, July, August, September, 4 months. There's a rainy season. So they were there for 4 months, and then they left. Narad Muni was left with a great taste for hearing about Krishna. He really wanted to hear about Krishna. Just like when I was a young man, I really wanted to hear about football. I remember. My life was football and studies. That's the two things my life revolved around. So whatever you have a taste for, like if I was to say, you know, if I put pizza, who likes pizza? We had pizza last night. We were at Lingeshwaru's house. And, or chocolate cheesecake, you know, for the ladies, you know. Anyway, whatever it is, whatever you have taste for, Narad Muni had taste. He wanted to hear about Krishna. He was dying to hear more about Krishna. So one day his mother went to milk a cow, and she was bitten by a snake, and she died. Narad Muni was 5 years old. 5 years old. So young, and his mother died. What do? He was the son of a maidservant. His father was unknown. He had no other shelter. What do? So in the purport, Srila Prabhupada writes that this is the way that the Lord drags a sincere person closer to him. Narad Muni was a devotee. He was interested in hearing about Krishna. He had one shelter on the material platform, and that was his mother, and he took that away. How cruel. How cruel Krishna is. Has anyone ever felt that? Krishna is so cruel. Anyone experienced that emotion? Has anyone suffered in life? Yeah? You're laughing, right? Everyone suffered. Who hasn't suffered? Okay. Who's experienced pleasure in the world? Okay, who hasn't experienced pleasure in the world? Let me ask the easy question. Right? So everyone's suffered and everyone's experienced pleasure in this world. Who would say they're equal in this material world? Who would say suffering and pleasure are equal in this world? No one. Someone? I see someone thinking. Yeah, maybe? Maybe? A bit of equal? Who would say there's more pleasure? More pleasure in the world? One person? Nice. Anyone else? He's brave. Okay, who would say there's more suffering in the world? More suffering? Okay, so a few of you putting your hands up. And who's kind of, okay, the rest are undecided? Not quite sure? So, you know, the material world is a mix, right? There's pleasure and there's pain. Krishna says in the Bhagavad Gita that this pleasure and pain are like the coming and the going of the winter and summer seasons. Summer's gone so quickly, it flew, right? And winter's, or you know, autumn is coming soon. It was raining yesterday and the day before, and tomorrow and the day after. Autumn's coming. I guess we're in Zurich. It rains quite a lot here anyway, right? It's like London. Not as bad as London. But it comes and goes. So pleasure and pain come and go. But the point that Prabhupada is making in the purport of this section is Krishna, for a devotee, Krishna makes these things happen. Krishna is intervening in an individual's life. And a devotee has to train their minds, has to train their emotions, train their intelligence to understand what is happening and why it's happening, what the purpose of this is. So if you're a devotee, meaning you're practicing Krishna consciousness and you're undergoing some suffering, then a devotee knows that Krishna is my ultimate well-wisher. Krishna knows me better than I know myself, better than anyone else knows me. He loves me. He's in control of everything. Not a blade of grass moves without Krishna's sanction. So whatever is happening for my own benefit. It's happening for my own good. So how is that the case? How can I use this situation in order to deepen my devotion? So what does Narad Muni do? Narad Muni heads north. He heads north. Meaning he goes to the Himalayas. Who goes to the Himalayas? Yogis, sages, great personalities. For what purpose? For self-realization. For God realization. He's 5 years old. It's described he goes through forests and jungles. He goes through metropolises. And eventually, actually, he ends up in... Does anyone know? He ends up in Vrindavan. And he performs his tapasya, his meditation there. So, how to take these situations as the hand of God, the hand of Krishna. We have to train ourselves to understand what's happening. A devotee doesn't see the form of a situation, he sees the substance. A devotee is saragrahi. He takes the essence of a situation. He knows that Krishna is my well-wisher. Krishna mareke rakeke, Krishna rakeke mareke. If Krishna wants to protect me, then no force in the world can harm me. And if Krishna wants to harm me, if he wants some harm to come my way, then no force in the world can protect me. And that is the trust of a devotee in Krishna. And we don't know what Krishna's plan is. We see very short term. What is Krishna's plan in the long term? So once there was, in Dwarka, which is in Gujarat, there was a deity of Lord Dwarkadish. And this deity was very beautiful. He was standing with a flute, threefold bending form. And there was a devotee there who was very dedicated. He was cleaning the temple every day for many, many years. He was very, very dedicated. Daily he would clean the temple. And he would speak to the Lord like he was his friend. He had a very good relationship with Krishna. He was very personal. So he was serving. And one day he was just looking at Krishna speaking to him, and he thought, what would it like to be Krishna? Has anyone ever thought that before? What would it like to be Krishna? When I was young, I remember thinking that, what would it like to be Krishna? So he's thinking, just looking at Krishna, looking at the deity, Dwarkadish, thinking, what would it like to be you? So then suddenly Dwarkadish said to him, you want to swap? So he said, yeah, sure, I'd like to swap. So then the devotee, the cleaner, he became Dwarkadish. Dwarkadish said that there's one condition. You will, over the course, so one day, you can be me for one day. But on one condition, whatever happens, you don't say anything, you don't do anything, you don't respond, you don't intervene in anything that happens over the course of the day. You have to just stay still and watch. So he says, yeah, sure, no problem. That sounds easy enough. He agrees. So he's a simple person, a simple loving devotion, simple bhakti. But that was the instruction. You have to stand still, don't say anything, don't do anything. So then he stood there with his flute, still and just watching. And it wasn't long after, and a businessman comes in. And he pays his obeisances, and he's watching, thinking, okay, this is interesting. You know? So the businessman comes and he prays to Dwarkadish, the cleaner. And he says, please, my business is growing. Soon enough, it'll be national. But once it becomes national, I want it to become international. My children, they're at university. Please, give them a very good education. I want them to get first-class degrees. My father's health is very bad. Please, make him get better. He had a long list of desires. You know. Currently, I'm a millionaire, but I want to become a multi-millionaire. He had all these desires, you know. He says, please fulfill my wishes. And then he puts a nice big donation, takes his wallet out, puts a nice big donation in the donation box, pays his obeisances again, and then leaves. However, as he was paying his obeisances, he dropped his wallet. But he didn't realize, he left. The next person to come in was a devotee. Very simple devotee, not very wealthy, very poor actually. So the devotee comes in, he pays his obeisances, and he prays to the Lord that please help me to become your pure devotee. I'm so unqualified. I have so many unwanted desires in my heart. Please remove them and allow me to become 100% pure in your devotion. And I have one desire. I have your deity form at home, but I'm not able to serve him very nicely because I'm very poor. I just want to have a few fruits and vegetables, maybe some nuts to offer to the deity. If you wish, please arrange this for me. He paid his obeisances, and as he was getting up, he noticed this wallet on the floor. And he opened the wallet, and it was full of cash. And he, in his simple mind, he just thought, wow, my Lord has reciprocated so directly with my prayers. He's so kind. This is amazing. This is a miracle. But I believe in miracles because I believe in Krishna. He can do anything. He can do everything. There's another story that comes to my mind of Narad Muni and the cobbler, but I won't tell it now. So he just takes the wallet, and he takes the wallet and thinks he can use it for worshipping his deity. And Dwarkadish is watching all of this, you know, and he's thinking, this isn't right. This can't happen. He's just stolen the wallet. He's taken the wallet. But he remembers the instruction. I just have to stay still. I can't intervene. I can't get involved. I can't get involved. I can't get involved. Next person to come in is a sailor. The sailor has a family, has a wife, he has children. He's going off to sail for 6 months. He'll be back in 6 months' time. And he comes, he pays his obeisances, he prays that please, 6 months is a long time, please protect my wife, protect my children, and allow me to have a safe voyage and return healthy so I can return to my loving family. This was his prayer. And just as he finished his prayer, the businessman returns to the temple room and he's looking around for his wallet, and he can't find his wallet, and he says, "This must be the thief," and he has the police with him. "This man must be the thief. He's taken my wallet. Arrest him. Take him away. He's a thief." So the police, he's a rich man, so the police just listens to the rich man. They take the sailor, and they're just about to take him away to prison. And Dwarkadish can't stand still. He can't keep quiet. He says, "Stop!" Imagine if Gornitai, they say, "Stop, Ananda Caitanya, stop speaking." Everyone's shocked. So everyone's amazed, shocked. Dwarkadish is speaking. He says, "Stop! This is not right. This is not correct. He's not the thief. He's just an innocent sailor with a wife and children. He has to earn his money. He's not the thief. There's a devotee. He's the thief. I'll tell you what he looks like. You go and find him. He's the one who's stolen this wallet. He's the thief. Leave the sailor alone." So everyone's going to listen to God, right? Everyone listens to God. So especially if God just comes out like that, right? So, everyone doesn't listen to God. God's given his message in the Bhagavad Gita, the Bhagavatam, but not many people listen to him. But if he comes out like that, then everyone's going to listen to him. So the police step back, they let the sailor go, and they arrest the devotee and put him in jail. Poor guy. So then Dwarkadish, or the cleaner, quite proud of himself. I stopped this injustice. The devotee, he was the thief. The sailor was innocent. It was going the wrong way. I made sure that justice took place today. I'm God. This is correct. So at the end of the day, original Dwarkadish returned, and he said, so they were swapping places. He said, "How was the day? What did you see? What did you observe?" He said, "Yeah, it was interesting, just a different perspective to be on the altar there, just to be watching people coming in, see how they pray, see what they do. It was a little boring, to be honest with you, but yeah, it was interesting." He said, "So, anything of note, any interesting incidents?" He said, "Yeah, there was this one situation, where, the police came in, there was an innocent sailor, they were going to take him away, and I stopped, and I made sure that the real thief was caught. So I felt quite proud about myself." He said, "You fool, I told you, you do not intervene in anything. There was a whole plan. This was all ordained." The devotee. So the businessman has more money than he knows what to do with. My plan, Dwarkadish, original Dwarkadish says, my plan was that a little bit of this money, whatever he had in his wallet, for him a drop in the ocean. For the devotee, it would allow him to worship nicely my deity form at home and support his devotion. I just wanted to reallocate a little bit of Lakshmi, some money, from one to the other. Simple. That was my plan. And the sailor, he's now set free. He's gone on his voyage. But the ship that he's going to be on is set to sink. My plan was that he gets arrested, he's put in jail, they realize he's not the real perpetrator, and he's set free, but he misses this boat. And in that way, he survives. Now, due to your meddling, your involvement, Your attempts to play God, everything's messed up. The poor devotee who just wants to serve me in pure devotion, he's now in jail. And the sailor is on the ship which is set to sink. You fool, I told you, one simple instruction, do not intervene. I think this story, I always remember it because it's instructive. Very instructive for our own lives, because very often we see one particular situation, the now, what is happening now, the troubled situation that I'm in, the difficulty, and we get so absorbed in that situation, but we don't know what the long-term plan is. We don't know what Krishna wants through all of this. One more story, quick. So there was a king and his advisor. Some of you would have heard this story. There's a king and his advisor. And one day the king goes hunting. And when he's hunting, he's a good archer. He's got a bow and arrow. And as he's hunting, somehow his concentration slips. And the arrow slips from the bow and cuts off his thumb. If anyone knows anything about archery, then it's very difficult to fire arrows without your thumb. So he goes home and he gets seen to by a doctor, etc. And then the next day he's in pain and he's complaining. Look, my thumb has been cut, and now I can't do archery. I'm debilitated. And his advisor says, "Don't worry, O king. Whatever happens, happens for a reason." And the king becomes very angry. He says, "What do you mean? Whatever happens, happens for a reason? My thumb has been cut off. Do you not understand? It means I can't hunt anymore. I can't fight anymore. If we ever get attacked as a kingdom, then my thumb is gone. How can I fight? How can I defend the kingdom? And you, my so-called advisor, are telling me whatever happens, happens for a reason? What kind of philosophy is this? What kind of wisdom is this? You're meant to be my advisor. You're useless." And he put him in jail. So the advisor is telling himself as well, whatever happens, happens for a reason. Soon after this incident, the king goes to visit another king in another kingdom. And as they're going, the king has his entourage, he has some soldiers, some elephants, but they get attacked by a huge mob of Kali worshippers. And they are looking for a human sacrifice. So who do you take? Who do you choose? You choose the most well-fed, well-groomed, the best specimen. So they capture the king. And they want to offer the king as a human sacrifice. And just as they're about to offer him, one of them sees he doesn't have a thumb. The king is scared like anything. He's so scared. He's going to die. But they realize he doesn't have a thumb. He's incomplete. And therefore, he can't be offered. So they let the king go. And the king returns to his kingdom. He takes the advisor out of jail and he says, "Your words are ringing in my ears, in my head. I can't forget. You said, whatever happens, happens for a reason. I called you a fool. I put you in jail. Please forgive me. You're my advisor for a reason. You really are a man of wisdom. Thank you so much. Me not having a thumb is a problem, but today that saved my life." So the advisor he felt happy, vindicated. But he said, "It's okay, O king. Actually, you put me in jail, and I told myself the same point. Whatever happens, happens for a reason. Because if you didn't put me in jail, then wherever you go, I go with you. I would have been right next to you. And if they saw you without a thumb, you know where I'm going, right? Say, if they saw you without a thumb, then they would have taken me, right? I would have been the human sacrifice. So you put me in jail, a few days of suffering, but in the long run, it saved my life. So again, the incident, okay, the king lost his thumb, problem, but in the long run, it saved his life. The advisor was put in jail, problem, but in the long run, it saved his life. So in the same way, in our lives, we go through all sorts of situations. And no one complains about the pleasures. But we meditate on and often get very absorbed in the pains and the problems that this material realm throws at us. But there's a certain mood, an approach that a devotee takes towards these situations. And the more Krishna conscious we are, the more we have a trust and a faith and a connection with Krishna, the more healthily an individual is able to take these situations. It's like a martial arts teacher and a student. If you imagine, has anyone ever done any martial arts? Yeah? I remember when I was younger, I did some judo. It wasn't my favourite, but it was compulsory. And I remember the judo teacher, when he was teaching us, someone would have to be the student, and he was a teacher, and he would do the moves on the student. And I was the student at times, for the demonstration. You have to have a certain trust in the judo teacher, because he threw me around like anything, and it wasn't very pleasant. Who likes getting thrown around? But you trust that this is a teacher, he's teaching me. So if your teacher slaps you or punches you or kicks you here and there, you know that this person has my best interests at heart. This is what he wants. This is for my betterment. This is for my training. So in the same way, this material world is like a martial arts class. And Krishna is the martial arts trainer. So there may be situations, there may be times when we get kicked and slapped a little, or thrown around. But it's for our ultimate benefit. And a mature person who has a trust in Krishna thinks, what does Krishna want through this situation? What is his purpose? What is his goal? What is his aim? And how do I mold myself to learn the lessons that he wants to teach me? What is he trying to communicate through this situation? And there's a very nice verse in the Srimad Bhagavatam. It's 10:14:8. 10th canto, 14th chapter, 8th verse. It says, Titenu kampa susamikshamano gunjan nivatma kritam vipakam tadvag hridvagvapur bhir vidathan namaste jivetayo mukti pade satayabak. It says that a devotee who is undergoing suffering, undergoing difficulty in life, how does he see or compute this situation? How does one digest these difficulties? First of all, he understands that these difficulties that I'm experiencing are a result of my previous karma, my previous misdeeds. And actually, a sincere devotee says these are but a token reaction. The mentality is that I deserve worse. But because of Krishna's mercy, because of Krishna's kindness, he is giving me a fraction of what it should be, because he's so kind. And at the same time as thinking this, a devotee doesn't become angry at Krishna, he doesn't curse Krishna, but hridvag vapur. With his hrid, his heart, vapur, hridvag, with his words. So with his heart, with his words, and with his body, he continues to pay his homage, his obeisances to me. So this is a mood of a devotee, that he continues to worship Krishna, he continues to pay his respects and obeisances to Krishna, at the same time knowing that whatever I'm experiencing is my own, he owns the problem, to put it into modern day speak, to own the problem, to correct and reform. And for such a person, this verse says, Jiveta yo mukti pade sadaya bhag. For such a person, mukti, or self-realization, is his rightful claim. Krishna will bless such a person with his bhakti, with his pure devotion. So how to have this kind of faith in Krishna? So this all means that you have to have some sort of relationship with Krishna. Because otherwise Krishna is just some kind of concept, some idea. He's God. What is God? Who is God? God is a person. So Kaviraj Goswami in the Chaitanya Charitamrita, he describes that a devotee, as he hears about Krishna, beautiful picture of Krishna. Yeah. As you hear about Krishna, and you hear and you hear, he says that the lotus of the heart unfurls. As you hear about Krishna, his name, his form, his qualities, his pastimes, and the more you repeatedly hear and become absorbed in these pastimes, Krishna becomes more and more a person. Because at the beginning of Krishna consciousness, Krishna is more a concept. God is a concept, a construct. You know, this concept that we've heard about, maybe previously we didn't believe in him, maybe we had another faith, but God is just some sort of idea. Because also in many other traditions, the concept of God is very impersonal. In Krishna consciousness, God is very much a person. You know, just like me and David here, we're looking at each other. God is a person. And he can talk, and he can walk, and he can respond, he can intervene in our lives. He's very, very personal. How can he intervene in the lives of even the 70 people in this room? Because he's God. He can do that. And he's very, very personal in our lives, especially as we come closer to him and undertake devotional service. So God, as we hear about Krishna more and more, Krishna becomes less and less of a concept and more a person. And in that way, the relationship with Krishna grows and develops. And like I said, like Kaviraj Goswami says, the lotus of the heart unfurls. It expands. And the relationship grows and develops. And then, whenever anything happens, there's a natural trust, a faith, that Krishna's allowed this to happen in my life, and how do I use this to come closer to him? Just like Prabhupada said in the purport with Narad Muni, this is the way that the Lord drags. Sometimes we need to be dragged. Sometimes we need a bit of a push to come closer to Krishna. But this is the way the Lord drags the sincere soul closer to him. The purpose of Krishna is only for our benefit. He's our greatest well-wisher. He's our greatest well-wisher. There's no one, you know, sort of, who's your greatest well-wisher in this material realm? Think of the person who's closest to your heart. Yeah? Krishna knows you and loves you more than anyone can and will. He knows what is best for us. He knows what is most conducive for our spiritual development and ultimately for coming back to him. So the more we trust him, the more these situations become easier to handle and to navigate through. Otherwise, we're fighting against a situation. We're wondering, why did this happen? What's the purpose? Why do you allow this to happen, Krishna? And when you're in that kind of mentality, then it's very difficult to find a peaceful kind of consciousness or approach. So the point is, the more we hear about Krishna, the more we relate to Krishna. Krishna's his Gauranitai, his Jagannath, Baladev, Subhadra, they're not just stone or wood. This is Krishna. And the more we relate to him in this way, the more he becomes a very active part of our lives. And this is Krishna consciousness. So I'll stop there. And see if there's any questions or comments or corrections. Excuse me. Yes.
Thank you very much. Very wonderful topic, relevant in our lives. When you ask how many experience suffering, almost everybody lift up their hand. So that's something. I thought to maybe throw in one element which maybe brings more of a light. There's also this idea that Krishna respects our free choice. And I was just wondering how that free choice relates in this situation. Like you mentioned that Krishna loves us and he arranges for us all the best. Now where our free choice stands in this, that means also we can shut him down, or you know what I mean? Just wanted to explore.
So, I think first of all, there's two aspects that come to me. The first is, whatever situation we experience within our lives is within the realms of our karma, right? So, if you have a car accident, just say, God forbid, but if you have a car accident, then that car accident should be used by a sincere devotee. Krishna's allowed this to happen, but it's within the realms of my karma. So, and therefore, I use my free will either in this life or in a previous life to commit certain activities, which mean that this car accident that I'm experiencing now is a result of my previous activities, the use of my previous free will.
So bearing
responsibility. This is happening because I did something in my past as utilizing my free will. So I'm responsible for this situation. I can't blame anyone else. So this situation has been brought about as a result of my previous karma. Krishna has allowed it to happen, but what does Krishna want me to do with this? What does he want me to do with this situation? He wants me to come closer to him. How do I come closer to him through this situation? And that's the thinking of a sincere devotee. How do I utilize this situation to increase and develop my devotion towards Krishna? And that's the other element of free will. We have a free will. How do I respond to this situation? So life's all about reaction. How do we respond? How do we react to the various impetuses and stimuli? Very often we can't control the external world. We can't control the stimuluses. We can't control other people. What we can control is our reaction. So we can use our free will to curse Krishna, to blame him, to deride him, to ignore him, to criticize him. Or we can use our free will to say, okay, this is a difficult situation. I broke my leg. I got 6 weeks off work. So let me mend. Let me read more. Maybe I can give a few Zoom classes talking about my experiences and inspire people. There's so many ways that we can use. Often this is the approach is to be absorbed in the problem, to be absorbed in all of the issues it causes us, all of the negativities, the pain, the unfairness of it all, the things you can't do as a result of this incident. But a devotee tries, and this is a mood of a devotee, okay, fine, this has happened, I put it to one side, now I'm in this situation, I accept it, and how do I utilize this to increase my devotion? So free will is very relevant, for sure. And ultimately Krishna, our relationship with Krishna is all about love. So he's given us free will, and we can... Why is there free will? One fundamental reason why there's free will is because life is all about love in the ultimate sense. Love cannot be forced. So we have to utilize our free will to love Krishna. If I say, love David, you have to love, he's quite a lovable person, but you have to love him. And you say, who are you to tell me to love him? Love isn't forced. Love is voluntary. Love is based on my free will. So, in the same way, Krishna wants us to voluntarily go to him and to love him. And that's the best use of our free will. To love Krishna.
Hare Krishna. I have a question in regards to the last verse you quoted ending with Dayabhak. This rightful claim the person has. I find this idea always very interesting. It has a relief in it.
A relief?
Yeah, a relief. I think if I remember correctly, Srila Prabhupada uses also an example like a son has the rightful claim to inherit from the father and so on. And before you mentioned how the absolute will of Krishna, no blade of grass moves without him. And it seems to be kind of a contrast, like in one sense we have everything is Krishna's will, and now it sounds, but we can have a claim toward Krishna and he has to kind of abide by his principle. Can you say something on that?
Yes, nice point, thank you, Prabhu. This is the nature of devotion. At the beginning is Vaidhi Sadhana Bhakti, regulated devotional services, rules and regulations which we have to follow in order to it's like crutches, or like a baby riding on a bicycle with supports, That's the nature of Vaidhi Sadhana Bhakti. And we adhere to Krishna's will. We read the Bhagavad Gita, we study the scriptures, and we follow the rules and regulations. But over time, as one's devotion develops, and in the highest stages of devotion, Krishna doesn't give love for him very easily. Prema. So there's 9 stages of devotion from Shraddha to Prema. Initial faith, all the way up to love for Krishna. And I'm not talking about the kind of love where a boy says to a girl, I love you. And it lasts 2 minutes and then he moves on to the next one and then the next one. Love. Prabhupada said that a devotee has to be mad after Krishna. Mad after Krishna. This is Prema Bhakti. Krishna doesn't give this kind of love where all you're doing is thinking about Krishna, meditating on Krishna, chanting his names, glorifying him, absorbed in Krishna. The mind is Krishna, 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 nothing else. So that's pure devotion, that's pure bhakti, that's Prema Bhakti. But Krishna doesn't bestow, this kind of bhakti doesn't just come. It's not something that you can control. Krishna bestows this upon a worthy individual, but after some time, because Krishna Karshaniyata, this kind of love, it really attracts Krishna. And not just attracts him, it binds him. It binds Krishna. Love binds. When someone really loves you, has anyone ever felt loved? Yeah, you felt loved. How does it feel to feel loved? Anyone want to say? How does it feel when you really feel loved?
Wonderful.
Wonderful. Right? And? Adam? Please. No, please. Okay. Anyone else?
Warm.
Round.
Warm, hot.
Or warm, hot. You right? Yeah, okay. It's a nice feeling, right? Nice experience. Anyone else?
Safety.
Safety. Very nice. Krishna feels safe because we've cheated him many times for the material energy. It's Krishna or Maya. We chose Maya so many times. When we really love him wholly and solely, he feels safe in our love. And only when he feels safe does he bestow his love. Because when we have that ability to love him in that very exceptional way of prema bhakti, then he knows that that kind of love will capture my heart, meaning Krishna's heart, and it will bind him. And then ultimately, and this is an amazing thing about Krishna consciousness, is that ultimately we serve Krishna, God is great, and we're just devotees, normal everyday people. But for a premi bhakta, Krishna becomes that person's slave, servant. Krishna serves the person. Krishna loves the person. I mean, he always loves us, we hear that all the time. But just to understand that Krishna is dying then to serve his devotee. And then you have this wonderful union between the devotee and Krishna, a union of service, of mutual service, mutual love. Love means service. And it's beautiful. It's not that God stays on some huge throne or huge pedestal and is looking down, for eternity on his minions. It becomes a mutual bond of love. And it's so beautiful because love binds. So actually what happens then, just like the residents of Vrindavan, Krishna becomes an ordinary boy, a little blue boy. In Vrindavan, they don't have any concept of Krishna being God. He's just a lovely little blue boy who's so attractive, who's so endearing, who's so... everyone just constantly wants to be around Krishna. Everyone wants to talk to him, everyone wants to see him, everyone wants to hear his honey voice. Everyone wants to hear him playing the flute. Everyone wants to see his graceful limbs moving and walking down the street. Everyone wants to smell the aroma coming from his limbs. It's just Krishna, Krishna, Krishna. So that love, it binds Krishna, and then he says eventually, when you have that love, then he says, I'll give you whatever you want. So it becomes an individual's rightful claim because they have that kind of a bond where they can demand from Krishna. Srimati Radharani can demand from Krishna. She can say what she wants. And Krishna's a little, of course, Krishna takes, he has that famous picture where Krishna's taking his father's shoes on his head. Nanda Maharaj's shoes on his head. Nanda Maharaj is a devotee also of Krishna. But at the same time, he's the father. Krishna serves his devotees. So, in these high stages of devotion, it's a different set of rules. Krishna really gives himself, and when he gives himself, then the relationship becomes prominent. His godhood is very much in the background. So Vrindavan, awe and reverence is very limitedly seen. There may be some exceptional occasions in some pastimes where there's some elements of that, but then the love of the Vrajavasis covers any kind of conception. When Mother Yashoda sees the universe is in Krishna's mouth, then she's amazed that in her little son she's seen universe after universe, and in each universe is her looking into her son's mouth, and in that mouth is another unlimited universes, and somewhere another Yashoda looking into another mouth. And she's awestruck. But then she forgets about it. How did she forget about this whole pastime? Because her love just covers any kind of conception that Krishna is God. Then when there's a relationship, then yes, a devotee can demand from Krishna, can demand anything from Krishna. He can claim, this is my rightful claim. Like that. Thank you very much. I guess we should stop. Thank you for your attention, everyone. I wish you a wonderful Sunday and wonderful Sunday feast. Shri Shri Jagannath Baladev Subhadra Mai ki, Jai. Shri Gauritai ki, Jai. Prabhupada ki, Jai. New Jagannath Puri Dham ki, Jai. Nitai Gaur Premanandi,
Ananda Caitanya Prabhu ki,
Gaur Bhakta ki, Jai.
Hare Krishna. To devotees very quickly. Thank you very much, Ananda Caitanya Prabhu.